Hello everyone, welcome. Today we will be looking at the SVG files and how you can import them into RealWorld Paint or RealWorld Icon Editor. And you can of course also export them, but that was possible in the old version. So what are SVG files? I have some SVG files downloaded here. You can find them on the web. If you Google for free SVG files, there will be multiple websites that you can use and download images. SVG is a text-based format. I can show you how it looks when you open it in a text editor. It's similar to HTML and very complicated internally because there are multiple ways how something can be expressed. So this is how the source code of the SVG file looks like, and it represents a vector image. Now let me open something simple, for example this one. You can see that it has just 3 shapes, 3 polygons. You can of course edit them like normal polygons. And when we look at the file and open it as text, you can see how these polygons are encoded. SVG files are getting more and more popular, so it is a useful thing to be able to open them in RealWorld Paint and edit them. So these are some files I have downloaded from the web, and I'd like to maybe compare how RealWorld Paint and Inkscape works with SVG files. I don't know if you know Inkscape. It's a relatively popular free image editor for SVG files, and many of these downloaded files were created in Inkscape. I have tried to be as much compatible with SVG as possible, but because the SVG standard, or how do we want to call it, is very complex, not every file looks the same in RealWorld as it looks in other editors. It is very likely that there is no perfect SVG editor because it can contain very complex things. I will show something in Firefox, because you can open SVG files in Firefox and view them. What was it called? Maybe it's here. What was it called? Yeah, this file. Let me show that in Firefox. When I open this file in Firefox, it's a SVG file. It is actually like a normal page. When I click here, it will change, and it's a simple game that is programmed in SVG. So I have lost the game. So of course it is impossible for RealWorld Paint to replicate all this functionality. When you open this file in RealWorld Paint, you will see some of the elements that are there, but you won't be able to play the game because this is not a game engine, it's an image editor. For example, the instructions are here in this layer that is hidden, and there are scripts inside the SVG file that change the visibility when it's displayed here in web browser. So let me talk about what can be imported. We have a comment. Does it show you an error when something is unable to be imported properly? No, it does not show any errors. It just imports what it can import. So you can import all the basic shapes of SVG. What's this? When I open this as text, you can see that here is actual JavaScript that won't be imported because it would make no sense. And these will be imported actually. G means a group, that's usually translated into a layer, and I try to, you can see there is a group and inside is another group, and then there are 5 objects, and when I import these things, I try to remove groups that make no sense from the graphical point of view. So maybe one good thing for everyone, because SVG okay, let me get a bit back. SVG supports fills and strokes, outlines of a shape. Similarly as RealWorld Paint supports them, but not entirely in the same way. The current version does not support, for example, text with outlines, and this new version that's released today is able to draw text with outlines, but it's relatively slow. So text with outlines is supported. Also in RealWorld Paint you can control how the outline is positioned. The actual shape is this, and when I click on this button, the outline will be inside the shape. This is the standard SVG way. The outline is centered on the shape edge, and this puts the outline outside the shape. Let me make it bigger so we can see. It's outside, centered, and inside. There is also one more thing that's different in SVG and RealWorld. Will the unimportable parts be presented in the file after save, or will they be lost? They will be lost. Actually, many things will be lost when you open the file in RealWorld Paint and resave it. And this is true for many SVG editors. because it's impossible to keep everything in place. There can be, for example, comments in the SVG file, and when you add a new shape, you don't know where to put it. So usually the editors import the SVG and everything they support, and the rest may be lost. So one more thing related to these outlines. When SVG in browsers or in other editors draws a shape that has a fill and an outline, it always draws the fill first, and then it draws the outline over the shape. And this is slightly different in RealWorld Paint. When you make the shape semi-transparent, as I just did, you can see that it would be different. When I turn off the shape, this is the raw shape. This is how the shape looks when it's filled. And when the outline is enabled and is centered, then the outline takes over or removes part of the shape. And in other editors and also here in the browser, the red color will be visible under this semi-transparent red outline. So that's one difference. So what else? Let me show you a few of these files. Maybe some files with problems. This is one of the problematic files. You can see there are these white stripes that don't belong, and that is because RealWorld Paint doesn't support clipping paths. It is possible in SVG to have some objects and apply a clipping path on them. Maybe I can show you this function on another file. Where it is? Yeah, this file. You can see that this shape, this white shape right here, is not quite right. And if I open this file in Inkscape, where is it? Here. You can see that it doesn't look like in RealWorld Paint. There are two reasons. The first is that this part here is clipped, removed using the clipping path, and the second reason is because an effect is applied to this shape, and effects are also not fully supported when you import SVG files. The support will probably be improved in the future, but right now the only effect that will be imported is the blur effect, and it must be not on a single shape but on a group of shapes, otherwise it won't be imported. So that's one limitation. But the vast majority of SVG files you can download from the web is not using these advanced features. So this is a random file I have downloaded from this site here. You can see it here. So I can, for example, try to download this potted plant. And let's see whether it will work or not. How was it called? House plant. So I think that worked quite nicely. You can see that the structure of the file is relatively complex. And you can edit it as you wish, and we can try what happens when we save it under a different name, this modified file, and for example open it in a web browser. It looks just like we expect it to look. We have moved this shape and it is smoothed. Okay. So one more thing I wanted to talk about, but it is not very important. Maybe it is important. It is just a general advice how to create your vector files. When we look at this X and zoom in, you can see that there seems to be some weird pixels around these lines and also here. This is because, let me move it so we see how it is constructed. You can see that these black parts are placed in the gaps between the brown parts, and this is the brown part. When the pixels are, or when the shapes are drawn, theoretically the shapes, there should not be any gaps between the shapes, but because this shape is drawn first and some of the pixels here are not fully covered, just like here, then once it's drawn, this information is lost. We only know that, for example, this pixel is covered by 75% by this black color. And when we draw the other shape, and for example, you can see that this pixel is covered, part of this pixel is covered by this brown shape, but just maybe it's the missing 25%, but we don't know which part of this pixel was covered by the black shape. So we don't know that the missing 25% is coming from this brown shape, and it just takes the part of the how to explain it best. It only covers 25% of this missing region, so some color, the transparent color, shows through. And this is not just a problem in RealWorld Paint, it is this problem everywhere. So when you are designing your own 3D objects, you should not create shapes like this. You should always move the underlying shape, make it bigger like this, to not create these unneeded problems. For example, this hole should not be here at all, because we have this bright brown circle placed over it, so it makes no sense to have a hole in the dark brown shape here. You can see that now it works as it should. So please, when we have a new comment, I have had this problem exporting sprites from a game with vector sprites before. It's very frustrating. Yes, so the best practice is to make these shapes like this, to work from bottom up. And this problem is also visible on this file right here, and as you can see, it is not a problem here in this part of the image. For some reason, when the artist created this part, then he used, or he or she used, the shape properly. Yeah, this shape, when I remove it, this bright shape is covering all the area. That's how it should be done, and these details is placed over it. So that's the correct way. But for some reason, in this area, the artist decided to split, so use this incorrect way of making the file, making the graphics. There may be a solution in the future for this, but let's not talk about it right now. So, one more thing I wanted to tell you is that this latest version of RealWorld Paint and other software is now available from the download pages directly via this small link. It reads daily, unstable in parentheses, and it is a direct link to a zip file with the latest version of RealWorld Paint, cursor editor, or icon editor. So if you download the latest version, you will be able to work with SVG files, and if you find files that do not work and you think they are important, so then please let me know, and I will try to improve the importing capabilities of RealWorld Paint if it's not too difficult. So let me show you the icon editor you can download right now. This pre-release version of the icon editor is free, and it also supports SVG. And when you are creating icons, .ico files, you can use vector graphics, like usual, but you can also use 3D layers, and there is a small library of 3D objects. You can, there are some 3D objects, are there any? Port. That you can use to create your images. So you can create icons that are combined from vector shapes, for example from the imported SVG files, and from simple 3D objects. You can change the lights of in the scene. You can sometimes change the parameters of the 3D objects. You can make, for example, the hole a bit bigger, and so on. You can change the images that are generated. You can, for example, apply styles to the 3D layers. You can blur them if you want to, but that's not very useful. And you can also automatically adjust the size of the canvas for the generated icon, so that it always fits and uses as much space as possible. Or you can say that you want to have it smaller and only occupy 50% of the available space, or whatever you want. So that's about icons. We have Whistler Movies 98 says hi. Okay, hello. If anyone has questions or comments or requests what should be added to future versions of RealWorld Paint and Icon Editor, you can ask them now. Before the final version is available, there is still a lot of work for one thing that definitely needs to be improved is the ability to select objects in different layer than the one that's currently active, because right now you can only select objects that are in the current layer. You can just click and select this brown part, and that needs to be improved. You have to select the layer and then you can select the brown part, and so that's one thing that needs to be improved. And I have to also speed up the effects that can be applied, and maybe then there will be the official final version of RealWorld Paint. So if there are no more questions, then I will finish this stream. One more thing, when anyone posts in the Discord group or in the forums, I will read it, but I won't always respond, but be sure that I read it. And eventually I will make the modifications that are requested. So, any more questions? If not, we will finish in 1 minute. Maybe I will open something more complex. This is a very nice vector files, probably created in Inkscape. And you can see there are some problems. This ellipse should probably not be visible, or it should be blurred. I cannot think of any questions, but I will try the new builds and see if I can find any issues, and then I will get back to you with that, as well as issues I found in Vine. Of course, thanks. The next stream probably will be again in 3 weeks, but it will be most likely on Sunday, because the summer holiday is over and I don't expect that people will have time on Thursday. So thanks for watching and have a nice weekend after tomorrow. So goodbye.